Hello, my friends. The situation on the front remains extremely difficult. Overall, there will be a lot of interesting news today. The Russians continue to expand all available resources to advance and capture new territories. The fact that Putin is preparing for a peaceful resolution of the conflict is evidenced by the lack of mobilization. So, Russian military officials say that further advancement requires mobilization. However, Putin is not conducting mobilization on such a scale. We see that the number of attacks is at its peak today, and Russia is using up its resources to the maximum. This could indicate that Putin knows the war will be halted. Therefore, he wants to capture as much as possible with the remaining forces. However, Boris Johnson stated that if any territory is given to Putin, it will only be the territory held as February 24, 2022. Trump is one who can bring peace to Ukraine, as written in Boris Johnson's post on Daily Mail. He outlined his vision for a peace plan. First, Ukraine restores its borders to the state of February 24th, 2022, and gains the opportunity to join the European Union and NATO. Second, the US arms Ukraine to the teeth, replacing 70,000 American soldiers in Europe. Ukraine ensures European security instead of the US. Third, Ukraine guarantees the rights of the Russian-speaking population, allowing Putin to declare it a victory. Fourth, sanctions on Russia are lifted and all diplomatic relations are restored. So, friends, what do you think of this peace plan? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's move on to the front, starting with the Kharkiv direction. Here the Russians continue to assault Gleboke, but so far the Ukrainian forces have managed to repel the attacks and the front line remains unchanged. But the occupiers continue to target civilians. It's reported that in the village of Ivashke, Kharkiv region, right near the Russian border, 4 people were injured by Russian FPV drone strike. In the Vovchansk direction, fighting for Vovchansk continues, and shelling with cap bombs also persists without interruption. However, there are no changes on this section of the front. In the Kupiansk direction, the occupiers have managed to advance significantly, capturing 2 villages and taking control of territory in the fields. Now, the Russians are attempting to break through to the settlement of Kivsharivka to reach Kupiansk-Vuzlovy. Meanwhile, the battles for Sinkivka are still ongoing, but there have been no changes in this area so far. In the Svatov area, the situation is stable with low activity. However, the Russians continue their attacks on Stelmachivka without success, and fighting persists to the south near Grekivka. The Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling these attacks, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Crimea direction, battles ongoing around Nevska and Tarny. Additionally, the Russians are once again attempting to advance in the forest near Crimea. The Ukrainian forces conduct periodic counterattacks here, regaining some positions, which frustrates the Russians and prompts them to try advancing in this area. Despite this, the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, battles ongoing for Bilohorivka, Verkhnyokamensky, Vyimka, and Pereyizne. The Russians haven't made any new gains, but the situation remains challenging. Recently, there was significant Russian advancement in this area, and now battles are ongoing for new positions held by the Ukrainian forces. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians managed to capture Kalinivka after a long struggle and have advanced quite close to Grigorivka. Attacks are continuing there. Additionally, fighting is occurring in the Novy micro-district, with the Russians trying to advance further along the streets towards the city. The Ukrainian forces are making maximum efforts to repel them. Battles are also ongoing in the Klishchiivka area, where the Russians are making repeated attempts to advance through the fields towards the village of Bila Hora. While the Russians have had some successes, they are unable to establish a foothold near the village as the Ukrainian forces continue to resist. In the Toretsk direction, the situation is very difficult, with about 20 attacks in the past day. The Russians are advancing further along the streets of Druzhby, Pivnichne, Zalizne, and New York, and breaking through in the area of Delivka. Shalom with cap bombs continues at maximum intensity, and stopping these bombardments is not yet possible. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians continue to advance, and they have nearly reached the water barrier, beyond which there are reportedly strong fortifications. If these fortifications indeed exist, the Russians may stop here, but not for all. Once they manage to break through the defensive lines with cap bombs, they will resume their advance. We can only hope for the arrival of the F-16s, which were promised by midsummer, but haven't yet arrived. As before, we wait while the Ukrainian forces do everything possible to hold the defense in this direction. Additionally, it's important to note that Madar and his brigade are now operating in the Donetsk direction. Therefore, there is a high likelihood that Russian forces will be destroyed here in significant numbers using FPV drones. In the Kurakhva direction, battles are ongoing for Krasnohorivka, Paraskovivka, and the village of Kostantinivka. However, there are no changes in the front line so far, as the Ukrainian forces managed to repel all attacks. In the Vuhledar direction, attacks are reported only on Vodiane. Otherwise, the Russians have temporarily ceased their assaults and are bringing in new reserves. In the Zaporizhia direction, there is significant activity. The Russians are shelling the entire front line and attempting to break through to Malatokmachka, Novoandriivka, and the village of Sherbaki. They are also trying to expand their controlled territory near Robotine. However, no changes in the front line have been observed here so far. In the Kherson direction, shelling of the right bank continues. There are also renewed assaults on Ukrainian positions near Kozachi Lahiri. However, there have been no changes in the situation. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.